The UK Supreme Court will conclude their verdict tomorrow on whether the Scottish Parliament can hold a second independence referendum without prior approval from Westminster. So joining me now is Austin Sheridan, former SNP Glasgow City Councillor, and Brian Monteith, former Scottish Member of Parliament. Thank you both very much for joining me this morning. Now, back in 2014, I didn't think it was as long ago as that, actually. The Scottish independence referendum saw 55% of Scots vote no. Has the mood changed in Scotland, would you say, Austin?
Well, at the last Scottish parliamentary election in 2021, the people of Scotland elected the largest pro-independence majority of Parliament since its re-establishment in 1999. When we look at opinion polls, I mean, we can see that generally they're neck and neck, and it's not the election of MSPs that would decide the future of Scotland's constitutional path. It does have to be done through referendum. What we do know is that the people of Scotland elected a parliament to deliver on that mandate. And it's a shame that it's came to a situation where it's went to the Supreme Court because the Tories at Westminster don't respect the democratic wishes of the people of Scotland. That's why we're in this position today.
So, Brian, Scotland shouldn't have to ask for Westminster's permission to hold this referendum. If they want one, Nicola Sturgeon should be allowed to hold it, should she?
Well, actually, Nicola Sturgeon does not have any mandate. She sought a mandate. She didn't actually get the majority of the vote. She had to cobble together a coalition with the Greens, who did not promise to support the referendum to the electorate. So what we have is actually a power grab by Nicola Sturgeon in attempting to secede from the UK. The UK, of course, should have a say in actually existing. And it's quite right that in the bill that created the Scottish Parliament, it believed, and the parliamentarians certainly believed in the House of Commons and the Lords, when they enshrined it in law, that there would be no referendum without the UK Parliament agreeing. So it's right and proper that the UK Supreme Court, presided over by a Scottish president and a Scottish deputy president, should judge whether the SNP Green Coalition has the power or not, because they say they have, everyone else says they haven't, and it needs to be decided.
Austin, who would benefit from an independent Scotland?
Yeah, there must be a correction in what Mr Monteith said. It was a central plank of the Scottish Green Party's campaign to support a second independence referendum, so I don't know where he's getting that information from that they didn't, because they did. The people that would benefit from independence would be the people of Scotland. They would benefit in the sense that they would get the governments that they vote for, rather than Tory governments that they don't vote for. It would mean that if they want to remain in the EU, they could have remained in the EU, rather than being dragged out against their will. It would mean that the views and the wishes of the people of Scotland would be reflected in our democratic process, which time and time again it's not been respected by the remaining part of the Westminster Parliament. It may well be that the people of England or the rest of the UK have got different political priorities to people in Scotland, which is absolutely fine. That position is respectable as well. But it doesn't mean that time and time again that the wishes of the people of Scotland should be ignored, which is essentially what is happening.
Brian, would you like to respond to that?
Well, let's be frank. There was no mandate sought for having a coalition government. That's what we ended up with. And indeed, Nicola Sturgeon herself made it quite plain that anyone, not even wanting a referendum, not even wanting independence, should still vote SNP for them to form the government and to be the government by themselves. And she did not get that mandate. And she then claimed the mandate, even having told people that they could vote for her, even if they were against independence. So let's move on to that. As to your other question, who would benefit? Well, it certainly would not be the Scots. It would not be Scottish people or those people living in Scotland, because we know that the issues such as currency, defence, actually being able to run the NHS properly, education, which is going through the floor, we could go through countless issues, and we can see even after 14 years of the SNP being in power and having real power, things have got, in most cases, worse. The idea that Scotland would then be independent without the funds coming from the rest of the UK, and predominantly England, of course, just does not make sense to most Scots. And that's why there is not support for Scotland seceding from the UK.
Austin, last word to you.
Well, as I said, we don't know what the support is till we have a referendum. And one thing I would say as well is that the Tories campaigned in Scotland in the Scottish parliamentary election to vote for them, to stop an independence referendum. They resoundingly lost the Scottish parliamentary election, largest for independence majority since 2021. I don't understand why the Tories are so scared to have a referendum and put forward what they would describe as their positive case for the Union. Bring it on.
OK, well, let's see. The decision will be made in the Supreme Court tomorrow. No doubt we will be talking about it here. If not tomorrow, then also on Thursday. Brian Monteith and Austin Sheridan, thank you very much for that debate.